If you're someone who loves to sit down and dive into a great single-player gaming experience, well, this video's for you. 2023 looks like it's going to have some fantastic single-player games this year, from narrative-driven titles to open-world RPGs. So, I'm going to discuss some that are highly anticipated and that I'm really looking forward to. Now, let's get into the video. Dead Space is a beloved survival horror game that was first released all the way back in 2008, and the game is finally getting a much anticipated remake in 2023. For those unfamiliar, Dead Space follows Isaac Clarke, an engineer tasked with repairing a mining ship. As you can infer, something goes horribly wrong, resulting in the monstrous creatures known as necromorphs roaming the ship. Isaac must not only fight these creatures to survive, but has to try and find his partner Nicole, who's also been lost on the ship. The remake is being developed by EA Motive, who previously worked on Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Star Wars Squadrons, which I really enjoyed. The Dead Space remake has been remade from the ground up, featuring improvements in all areas from graphics to sound design, gameplay, and even aspects of the story. The ship is now fully connected and can be explored without the need for loading screens. Compared to the first game's silent protagonist, Isaac will now be fully voiced, with voice actor Gunnar Wright, who voiced Isaac in Dead Space 2 and 3, returning to fill the role. As of releasing this video, the Dead Space remake is now live, and it's received an excellent response, scoring an 89% on Metacritic, 87% positive on Steam, and a 9 out of 10 on IGN and GameSpot. This is one I never got to experience originally, so I'm excited to check it out. Next up is Hogwarts Legacy. In Hogwarts Legacy, you will experience Hogwarts as a student in the late 1800s, where you receive a late acceptance letter to Hogwarts and begin the school as a fifth-year student, which is highly unusual. Your character is a student who holds the key to an ancient magical secret, and you possess a unique ability to perceive and manipulate ancient but powerful magic. Your character's decisions will play a role in the story, and game director Alan Tudyk did confirm that the game's ending may be different depending on your choices and interactions with different characters in the game. You'll be able to explore Hogwarts and the greater world around it to discover new and exciting secrets. From Hogsmeade Village to the Forbidden Forest, you'll experience the magical world like no game before. You can visit your house common area, each with their own unique design and feel, as well as explore numerous areas of the castle in all its beautiful detail. You can visit and use the Room of Requirement, which will serve some important purposes. You can travel on foot, on broomstick, and on different mounts, such as hippogriffs, graphorns, and thestrals. You can fully customize your own character and bring in your custom wand and house into the game. You'll be able to use a variety of spells to take down your foes, explore the world around you, and solve magical puzzles. And not to mention, you'll also have the opportunity to learn all 3 unforgivable dark magic curses, if you so choose. The world will also be teeming with fantastic beasts and magical creatures for you to interact with, tame, and even rescue to your very own vivarium. And don't forget, you are a student after all, so you'll have a variety of classes that you can attend. If you want a deeper dive into all Hogwarts Legacy has to offer, then be sure and check out my game preview, which I'll link here in the video and in the description below. Atomic Heart is an upcoming action RPG set in an alternate universe Soviet Union in the 1950s, where science, equality, and fraternity are the main symbols of freedom in this reality. You will play the role of Major of Intelligence P3, a KGB agent sent to investigate the events at Facility 3826, where civilian robots designed to help people rebelled against their creators, and secret experiments resulted in terrible mutant monsters and giant machines. While investigating these events, you'll face some unique and fearsome robot enemies, which are interconnected by the global collective neural network. This connects all the flying and ground robots both on the surface and underneath in a single network, which helps to make the game more intense because if you're spotted by one robot, other reinforcements will be quickly arriving to come and try and kill you. You'll need to use different hacking methods to try and stay under their radar as you explore the world. You'll be able to craft and modify different weapons and use the environment to help fight these creatures. And you can, quote, turn everything into a weapon, environment, objects, your own body, and even the enemies themselves. I love alternate reality settings, so Atomic Heart looks like it could be a lot of fun. Here's hoping it can provide some solid gameplay, interesting enemies, and a fun story to dive into when it releases February 21st. Wolong Fallen Dynasty is being developed by Team Ninja and is said to be a Souls-like action RPG. It's based on the 14th century historical Chinese novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms. The game is set during feudal China in 184 AD, just before the fall of the Han Dynasty. The game will be a dark yet fantastical take on ancient history, including within it a world of supernatural beings and abilities. It will also feature some legendary figures from that time period as well. Team Ninja described the game's name and story with this quote: "Wolong refers to a crouching dragon, which also refers to a hero or person of greatness who is not yet known. This is the story of officers who will later become heroes during their unknown period, and also the story of a protagonist's rise from being a nobody." Within the game, you'll be able to customize your character's look and playstyle with 5 combat styles to choose from. These styles affect stats, starting spells, and the divine beast you can use in combat. The game will also feature a morale system, which is similar to a rank or level system for you and the enemies in game. If you defeat enemies of higher rank, you will increase your morale. The game will feature quick combat that is based upon traditional martial arts foundations. Team Ninja has said the game will be challenging, but it won't include a difficulty setting. For those who like Souls-like gameplay and interesting stories, this is definitely one you should check out when it releases on March 3rd. Resident Evil 4, originally released all the way back in 2005, is one of the most beloved games in the Resident Evil franchise, and the survival horror genre as a whole, and it was about time that the game received a remake. The Resident Evil 4 remake will look to maintain the soul of the first game, but will also feature some much welcomed upgrades. The game will feature vivid new graphics, updated modern controls, and a quote, reimagined storyline. The remake will remain close to the original game with various gameplay scenes and sequences playing out somewhat differently. There are also more cutscenes replacing the older game's codec calls. Capcom is also looking to up the horror, keeping the camera closer to Leon and increasing the detail of Raccoon City. This is one that I never originally got the chance to play, but I'll definitely be checking it out when it releases on March 24th. Scars Above is described as a challenging sci-fi action-adventure shooter set in a mysterious alien world. In the game, you'll play as Kate Ward, a member of SCAR, which is a group of scientists and engineers tasked with studying a massive alien object floating in Earth's orbit, which humanity names the Metahedron. However, things don't go as planned, and the SCAR team is pulled by the Metahedron through space onto a mysterious alien planet. Your goal will be to find your crew and discover the mystery surrounding what has happened. You'll use a combination of ranged weapons, devices, consumables, and melee attacks to fend off the alien threats. You'll also be able to craft items and use elemental attacks to break through obstacles. You'll journey through various biomes while exploring this foreign planet, scanning for objects, materials, and creatures to better understand the things around you, including their features, their properties, and the weaknesses that you'll have to use against them. And there will also be boss battles throughout, requiring different tactics, helping you to keep things fresh. Now, to be honest, this wasn't really a game that was on my radar until I started researching for this video, but from what I've seen, it might be something to get excited about with a planned release Q1 of 2023. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is the sequel to 2019's Jedi Fallen Order, which followed the story of Cal Kestis, a Jedi Padawan who lived through Order 66 with plans to rebuild the Jedi Order. Fallen Order was a shining example of how a story-driven, single-player Star Wars game could still be a success in today's gaming market. Jedi Survivor continues Cal's story and is set 5 years after the first game. The game will likely feature a more somber tone than the first, and Cal may find himself much more isolated. Along the way, Cal's lightsaber and ship will likely be lost. The game's director, Stig Asmussen, has said that Cal must do, quote, whatever it takes to stay alive, including making connections with people that, in other times, might be considered unsavory. Jedi Survivor will include some welcome additions and upgrades to the first game, specifically regarding combat. Cal will have a blaster at his side that he can use in combat, a much requested addition from fans, as well as a crossguard lightsaber and brand new force powers. The game will also feature new combat stances and a more expansive and vibrant world compared to the first game. So if you're a fan of Fallen Order like I was, it sounds like there are a whole lot of new additions that can make the sequel even better. And I can't wait to play it on its new release date of April 28th. Dead Island 2 is finally on its way. After an initial reveal all the way back at E3 2014, yes, you heard that right, 2014, numerous delays and the passing of development between studios, Dead Island 2 finally has a release date of April 28th. The game is set to take place in an open world version of Los Angeles referred to as Hell A. You'll take on LA during a zombie outbreak where you'll gruesomely be able to take out zombies in a slew of different ways. And honestly, some of the brutality is probably too much to show on YouTube, so if you see anything blurred, then you probably know why. You'll take on the role of 6 playable characters known as Slayers, with Jacob, Ryan, and Amy being some that we've seen thus far. Each will have their own unique abilities that you can use in game. And a really cool part is that each Slayer's abilities can be changed and reconfigured as you desire. So you can test and you can find your preferred build with each one. The game will also feature a detailed dismemberment system, so you can hack and slash the zombies to your liking. The game will also feature some co-op gameplay, but how the co-op will work has not yet been revealed. I wanted to include it on this list because it still offers a full single player experience, with co-op really as a little added bonus. So it appears that the much anticipated sequel is real and finally on its way April 28th. Here's hoping it was worth the wait. Up next is The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, which is the follow-up to the incredibly successful Breath of the Wild. Beginning as only an idea for a third Breath of the Wild DLC, Tears of the Kingdom has developed into a fully fledged and very exciting sequel. While information about the game has been held close to the vest, 2 trailers have been shown so far. The game will visit Hyrule once again while introducing new gameplay and a new story. The first trailer followed Link and Zelda as they made their way through a mysterious cavern containing a corpse and a bright shining green hand. The hand then combined with Link, the floor began to crumble and the corpse reanimated, that being Ganondorf. We see Zelda fall into the dark pit with her status in the game being unknown. Then we see a final shot at the end showing Hyrule Castle. In the release date trailer, we see that the Master Sword has been damaged, with it likely being that it will be Link's new quest to try and repair it. As the game's title implies, Tears of the Kingdom will feature a much more somber tone compared to the first game. But what is in store for players, we'll have to wait and see May 28th. It's been 6 years since the last main entry into the Final Fantasy series, but Final Fantasy XVI looks to be a huge title with massive battles and an extended storyline. The game's story appears to span over multiple decades, and we'll see the main character, Clive Rossfield, change throughout his teen years, through his 20s, and then his 30s. Producer Naoki Yoshida discussed with GameSpot that one of the main themes in the game is, quote, the clash of values between multiple different people with different ideals, sharing the same space, and trying to decide together what is right and wrong. Within the game, Valisthea is in political turmoil, which is leading to the conflicts. The world of Final Fantasy XVI revolves around crystals known as the Mother Crystals. There is also something known as the Blight, which may end up threatening the crystals along the way. The game has received a mature rating and will feature many mature themes. As Yoshida has said, they did so in an effort to, quote, make sure we could tell the story we wanted in the way that we wanted to. The game will also feature around 20 huge icon battles, each of which will be unique. And guys, it just has to be said, the revenge trailer for this game, which I'm using as the gameplay for the video, has to be one of the best trailers that I have ever seen. I loved every second of it, and it's just pure hype. Now, this is a series that I've never really gotten the chance to play for whatever reason, but after what I've seen from the game, I would love to check it out when it releases on June 22nd. Up next is one of my most anticipated games, and that is Starfield, a single-player RPG set in outer space from Bethesda, and it will be their first new IP in 25 years. Starfield will transport players to the settled systems in the year 2330, and Todd Howard has said the map in Starfield will be, quote, much larger than anything we've seen in previous Bethesda games. And the game is said to feature over 100 systems and 1,000 planets. Howard said that the game will use procedural generation, which is also used in No Man's Sky. It'll be worth seeing how dense and detailed those systems and planets will be, but if done correctly, it could be a huge win for the game. Your character will be a member of Constellation, an organization of space explorers trying to navigate and explore space, following a civil war between the game's 2 largest factions. Those factions being the United Colonies and Freestar Collective, who were engaged in a, quote, bloody colonial war before the game begins. You'll be able to customize your character to an in-depth degree in Starfield. You'll be able to customize everything from your appearance to your character's background story and personal traits, each giving your character unique advantages and quirks. And the game will feature in-depth ship creation and customization. The game will also plan to feature full mod support, which should entice many PC players. Like I said earlier, out of every game on this list, this is one of my most anticipated, so I can't wait to see what it has in store, and I just hope that it lives up to the expectations. Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl is the next-gen sequel to the award-winning game franchise Stalker. It's a first-person shooter experience combining RPG and action-adventure elements, giving players the experience of surviving in the post-apocalyptic Chernobyl exclusion zone. The game was delayed to allow for longer development and additionally was stopped along the way due to the development team being based in Ukraine. However, we can see from their updates that they're still working on the game and it's still set for a 2023 release date, as confirmed by their latest trailer. In Stalker 2, the Chernobyl exclusion zone has changed dramatically after the second massive explosion in the year 2006. There's violent mutants, deadly anomalies, warring factions, and all have made the zone a very tough place to survive. Within the game, you'll take on the role of a lone stalker and explore a seamless open world with a variety of environments. You'll make your way through the zone to define your destiny and choose your path within a quote highly branching epic story. You can engage in intense gunfights with a variety of enemies that follow different tactics trying to outsmart you. You'll be able to choose from 30+ different types of weapons with numerous modifications, allowing you to have hundreds of different combinations. Throughout the game, you're going to encounter these horrifying mutated creatures that are going to try and get you in different ways. And these different mutants, they may also appear to have different subtypes, which makes their behavior less predictable. And as mentioned before, the game's going to have a seamless open world, allowing you to explore the exclusion zone without once running into a loading screen. There'll also be a dynamic day-night cycle and weather to add even more realism to the gameplay experience. And the game will also feature mod support, allowing you to extend and enrich your game universe. Next up is Assassin's Creed Mirage. Assassin's Creed Mirage will take a welcome step back for many players who missed the old style of gameplay, which featured classic characters such as Ezio and Altair. Mirage is said to be a more stealth, action-adventure focused title, returning back to the gameplay roots of parkour, blending in with your environment and assassinations, and it will also feature a much smaller world to explore. Ubisoft said, quote, Assassin's Creed Mirage has a bigger focus on stealth than in the most recent games. In addition, design choices have been made to help enhance this stealth focus, such as the game's city design being structured to better support stealth movements, an upgraded detection system, and new tools such as the blow dart and detection mine. The game takes place before the events of Assassin's Creed Valhalla in 9th century Baghdad, beginning in the year 861. You'll take on the role of a much younger Basim, who is being haunted by strange nightmares and visions, and he joins the Hidden Ones to try and seek answers as to why. We'll follow him through his journey as he goes from a lowly thief to a master assassin. Along with featuring more stealth aspects during gameplay, progression will follow more closely with the story, which hopefully means less of a grind than the more recent open world versions. The main assassinations will happen in what are referred to as black box missions, where you'll track a target using your preferred path, then end the mission with a classic assassination. While I enjoyed the previous couple Assassin's Creed installments, I feel like it was about time we got to experience some of that classic gameplay, and I think Mirage will hopefully deliver that. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora is an upcoming first-person action game from Ubisoft Massive. The game will feature a new standalone story, separate from the movies, where we will play as the Na'vi as we journey across the western frontier of Pandora. The beautiful world of Pandora will be inhabited with creatures known and unknown from the movies. Based on some of the gameplay we've seen, the game will likely feature large action set pieces, such as in the trailer when the Na'vi take down the RDA helicopter. In a 2022 IGN interview, James Cameron revealed that he is not actively hands-on involved with the game's development, but that he trusts the team and they just look to make sure everything remains canon relating to the world and the story. The development team is also focusing heavily on making the world feel alive, with NPCs recognizing and reacting to the state of the world, such as the weather, the time of day, and our player's progression. The game will be utilizing the Snowdrop engine, which will allow the game to further immerse players into the world, from complex visual shaders to real-time wind simulations and intelligent plant life that will react to your presence. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora is an ambitious title building on a hugely successful world. I'm excited to see what a game set in this universe can offer when it releases in 2023. Lies of P is described as being a Souls-like game, with it gaining some comparisons to Bloodborne, but the story premise is what has many people interested. In the game, you will play as a mechanical version of Pinocchio within a dark retelling of the story. After being left in a suitcase, you are tasked with finding your father, Mr. Geppetto, in the Gothic city of Krat, a terrible world full of dangerous, twisted mechanical creatures, and which some have theorized that Mr. Geppetto himself may have created. During the game, you must tell lies to help Pinocchio obtain his humanity, and throughout the game, you will make important narrative choices that can affect the story and possibly the ending. As mentioned earlier, the game has gained some comparisons to Souls games due to its combat. Enemies have unique combat animations, and you'll need to use precise timing to dodge and defeat them. The game will also feature a weapon making system, including being able to customize Pinocchio's body as well. While we don't know too much about the game so far, what we have seen has been quite interesting, and I can't wait to see more. Being developed by Capcom, Pragmata is an upcoming action-adventure game that was originally slated for a 2022 release. Not much is known about the game at this time, but Capcom describes it as being set in a, quote, dystopian near future on Earth's moon. The original reveal trailer displayed a futuristic astronaut-like character, fully suited up alongside a girl that can somehow breathe in space. There are some comparisons being made between Pragmata and Death Stranding, but how similar they are is yet to be seen. In the trailer we can see our character use a fired projectile blast and hologram technology to track. It also appears at the beginning our character and the little girl are on Earth to begin with, but it's a desolate version, and as it continues we can see that the sky is no real sky at all, and more of a visual projection that is destroyed by a falling satellite. The trailer then ends as we see our view of Earth from the moon. When the satellite crashes through to Earth, it appears that the little girl has a connection to our character and or the technology of the world, as we can see her eyes change and seemingly connect with something when the satellite comes through. My theory is that she is robotic, similar to the cat in the video, and her and the astronaut character will work together to create a new civilization on the moon, or possibly figure out what they need to do to repair Earth. But maybe I'm wrong, could very well be wrong. It'll be interesting to learn more about the game as we progress through 2023. One thing is for sure, graphically the game looks beautiful. Let's just hope it pairs with some great gameplay and a fantastic story. Atlas Fallen is a new fantasy action RPG. It will put players in a semi-open world full of ancient mysteries and threats, which IGN describes as a mix of Monster Hunter, Control, and the Horizon series. In the game, you will hunt monsters, use weapons that can change shape, and the game's magic system is based on sand-powered abilities that you will use to interact with the world around you and fight enemies in combat. IGN was able to see around 20 minutes of behind closed doors gameplay and detailed some of the things that we will see in game. The game's world, Atlas, is ruled by the Sun God, a deity who uses humans to collect a valuable material known as essence. Atlas Fallen will feature 3 main weapons in the game. There is a sword that can transform when attacking to slice at and grapple enemies. There is a powerful hammer made of sand and a powered up version of your fist. The main story appears to be around 20 hours long, so it might be a bit short for some or just right, depending on what you want from your RPGs. But hopefully that story will be engaging and the other side content will fill in the game very nicely. Atlas Fallen will present the option for a friend to join you on your journey, but again, it does provide players with a full single-player experience and is not seemingly over-focused on co-op, so I wanted to include it on this list as well. Next up is The Wolf Among Us 2. The original Wolf Among Us, released by Telltale Games all the way back in 2013, was a massive success, even receiving an overall 97% positive rating on Steam. The game was an episodic graphic mystery adventure game based on the Fables comic book series by Bill Willingham. The game originally released in 5 episodes following Bigby Wolf, the quote, Big Bad Wolf and Sheriff of Fabletown. In The Wolf Among Us 2, you will once again play as Bigby. The game picks up 6 months after Season 1, where a new case is threatening to cross the line between Fabletown and the NYPD, and tension is rising. Your choices and your approach to handling the situation could determine the future of the Fabletown community. If you guys are unfamiliar with Telltale Games, then let me say they are one of my favorite developers. After finding massive success with games like The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us, to name a few, the company closed down in 2018, but it was once again revived in 2019, so here's to hoping they can get back on the path to releasing fantastic games once again. Following the success of 2018's Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2 has to be one of the most anticipated PlayStation exclusives. With both Miles and Peter now present, many are hoping that with Spider-Man 2, both will be available to control in-game, and switching between both during combat would be pretty sweet. It has been revealed that Venom will appear in-game, voiced by actor Tony Todd, but there have also been some speculations following the reveal trailer that Kraven the Hunter may appear as well, a classic Spider-Man comic villain. We hear a voice speaking over the trailer that says he's looking for a challenge and a formidable opponent. For those unfamiliar, Kraven is a maniacal big game hunter who seeks to defeat Spider-Man to prove that he is the greatest hunter in the world. In the reveal trailer, we also see Peter get a surge of power through his Iron Spider arms, hinting that suit powers may be making a return to the game. According to Tech Radar, Spider-Man 2 will feature a darker tone than the previous games, with Marvel's creative vice president Bill Roseman explaining that, quote, "If the first Spider-Man game was Star Wars A New Hope, Spider-Man 2 was kind of our Empire Strikes Back. It gets a little darker." Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga is the sequel to 2017's game, which followed the story of Senua, a warrior who must fight her way to Helheim to rescue the soul of her dead lover. And if that doesn't get you hyped, then I don't know what will. Hellblade 2 will be a third-person action-adventure game that continues Senua's story, but not much is yet known about what is in store for that story. However, we do know that the game will be set in Iceland. So far, we've seen a glimpse of gameplay during the Game Awards, where Senua and a group of others are trying to take down a giant, which doesn't particularly go well for them. The game is being developed on the Unreal 5 engine, and from what we've seen so far, the game is visually beautiful, from the character models to the different environments we've seen. The development of the current game will be on a much larger scale compared to the first, which was completed by fewer than 20 people. Combat improvement will be a focal point, with combat designer Juan Fernandez telling Vandal that they would be, quote, "raising the bar." This is a series that has received some serious praise, and I've always wanted to try and play the first game, but just have never gotten around to it. But it looks like I'm gonna have to fix that before Hellblade 2's release. Next up is The Lord of the Rings Gollum, a story-driven action-adventure where you take on the perilous journey as Gollum, chasing the only thing that is precious to him, the One Ring. The Lord of the Rings Gollum is said to be a canonical story in the world of Middle-earth. It follows Gollum after he discovers the One Ring, set before the events of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. It is said that Gollum has seen things that others cannot imagine. He has survived things that others would not dare mention. In the game, you're going to get to experience Gollum's story. The decisions that you make and the way that you play will have a direct influence on Gollum's personality, as he continually struggles between the two sides embodied by Gollum and Smeagol. The developers have confirmed that the opening level will be Barad-dûr, a Mordor stronghold where Gollum is being held captive. However, that won't be the only location we'll get to visit, as we'll be able to visit a variety of areas across Middle-earth. Many will be largely explorable and offer several questlines for us to uncover. Gameplay in Gollum will largely revolve around stealth and platforming. Honestly, this was a game that I was excited for quite a long while. However, after numerous delays and lack of further info, the game is really up there on my I hope this isn't going to be a disaster list. So here's to hoping I'm wrong. Produced by Remedy Entertainment, Alan Wake 2 is the sequel to the beloved Alan Wake, a third-person action horror game in which you play as the best-selling thriller novelist named, you guessed it, Alan Wake, as he tries to uncover the mystery behind his wife's disappearance. While working to uncover this mystery, he experiences events from the plot of his previous novel coming to life. However, he can't remember writing it. Alan Wake 2 will be a continuation of the previous game, while focusing more on survival horror instead of action horror. And it's a game in which Remedy described as a, quote, deep, layered mystery. The game's creative director Sam Lake had this to say about working on the sequel. This process now and working on the sequel feels familiar in many ways, but at the same time it feels very fresh and it feels like we are breaking new ground. It's a new genre and we are pushing further into the horror aspect of it, but also exploring the depth of the character. The game was originally slated to get a gameplay reveal during the summer of 2022, but the team didn't want to take away focus from the development of the game and decided against it, which I can honestly appreciate. I wish more companies would take more time to make sure everything's ready before we actually see it and so they can promise on what they deliver in their trailers. While we eagerly wait to see more, it sounds like the team at Remedy is hard at work on releasing a sequel that fans can get excited about. Alone in the Dark is a reimagined version of the 1992 survival horror game. In the game, you will explore Dursito Manor, a deteriorating home for the mentally ill located in the American South during the 1920s. You will play as one of two characters, Emily Hartwood, a woman in search of her missing uncle, or a private investigator named Edward Carnby. each experiencing their own perspective on the story as they work together to solve this case. During gameplay, you will gather clues, solve puzzles, encounter strange residents, discover portals to nightmarish worlds, and fight dangerous monsters, all to stop an evil plot. The gameplay will be set in a third-person over-the-shoulder perspective. Think Resident Evil. The game will also have some experienced writing behind it, with Mikhail Hedberg leading the way, having previous games of Soma and Amnesia: The Dark Descent under his belt. When it comes to psychological horror, the writing and atmosphere have to be fantastic for the game to be successful, so here's hoping that Alone in the Dark can make that happen. Under the Waves is a new narrative-driven adventure game published by Quantic Dream, the studio behind fantastic games such as Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human, and is being developed by Parallel Studio. The game's story will follow Stan, an oil diver in the 1970s exploring the depths of the North Sea. During the game, Stan will experience strange events, leaving him isolated and needing to find a way back to the surface, if that is, he even wants to return at all. You'll be able to explore various underwater locations such as caves and shipwrecks and see beautiful underwater creatures. Games Radar was able to get an early hands-on showing of the game. Throughout the gameplay, they describe Stan's, quote, crushing absolute isolation and grief as he works alone at the facility. While the game's atmosphere and story are its selling points, it also contains a crafting system and will allow you to explore the seabed openly. They also describe the sense of verticality as you navigate and complete Stan's tasks, going from walking to ascending the depths as you swim. While our info is limited so far on the game, Under the Waves is a promising title for those looking for both atmosphere and story and an underwater environment to explore, and I can't wait to see more. Dragon Age Dreadwolf is the fourth mainline game in the Dragon Age franchise. Dreadwolf will take place in a new location, that being Tevinter. A location previously mentioned but not visited, Tevinter is a country run by mages. While the story plot for the game is not yet fully known, lead writer Patrick Weeks stated, quote, "We want to tell the story of what happens when you don't have power, what happens when the people in charge aren't willing to address the issues. One of the main characters will be Solace. Originally meant as an insult, Solace took the name Dreadwolf as a badge of pride." While he is confirmed for the game, we also know that Varric, our longtime companion, will also play a role, as well as a new character named Darvin, who looks to be a member of the Grey Wardens, and Bellara, a female human. BioWare has said that Dreadwolf will be single-player focused, and will also be an easy entry point for players who may be new to the franchise. We also know that the game has reached a key milestone in its development, with BioWare General Manager Gary McKay announcing in October 2022 that Dreadwolf had reached its internal alpha milestone. He said, quote, "We can experience the entire game from the opening scenes of the first mission to the very end," which means for the most part that they are working on now polishing the game and getting everything right for the release. Dreadwolf will focus on expanding players' narrative experience, with Kotaku's 2019 report stating much of the game would center on heists, and the developers were, quote, "building systemic narrative mechanics allowing the player to perform actions like persuading or extorting guards without the writers having to handcraft every scene. The goal was to focus as much as possible on choice and consequence, with smaller areas and fewer fetch quests than Dragon Age Inquisition." Be sure to check out one of the videos on your screen, and let me know what game you're most excited for in 2023, or if I missed any on your list. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more.